while you're talking, I'm almost translating in real time the way that I would express the same thought, you know. But if I hear you right, it sounds like that you're really focusing on making sure that your audience has action steps to take away from it that they can apply to their life that are simple.
Yeah, and it's more of a programming thing, honestly, James.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to give them the worksheet and go, okay, if you do this, this is going to work. Like, I really focus on that reprogramming, because I think domestication and culture is so huge in the way that we perceive life and do life.
Okay, so then if I can try again, the way that I would typically refer to that in my my background, like I say, it is in neurolinguistic programming. So one of the things that Bandler and Grinder express this as is our modeling. We're modeling certain behaviors, and so whenever I kind of express this to people, I say, look, you've been modeling a certain type of behavior your entire life. That's not going to be an easy thing to fix.
Right.
We have to start activating the brain in new ways to create a new neural pathway so that we'll be on the other side of this without even having to try.
Exactly what I do.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, that's the way I would express that. And again, I mostly talk to me, because I'm trying to figure out my modalities in order to help someone else, but I have to understand it and articulate it to myself first.
Right, exactly right. No, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, so I appreciate you sharing that, and I think it's really cool. I think we do very similar things. I think it's awesome what you do. So what would you say, like, typically, what have you found are the biggest problems that you do solve for others?
So I'm going to answer this in two parts, because again, the way I started out is different from what I'm doing now.
Sure.
So to start out, you know how it is when you start out with your business, man. You're blind squirrel, man. You're just like, it's all stuff, I want to help people, that kind of thing.
Throwing spaghetti against the wall and hoping something sticks.
Exactly right. And in some ways, and you met Clay Stairs, right? That's how you got my info and all that?
Actually, I think we first became connected through Matt Moore, maybe.
Matt Moore, okay, that's right. Yeah, okay.
Now, I do know of Clay Stairs, and I think we're connected on social media platforms, but he and I haven't done much interaction.
Got it. So Clay really helped me at the beginning because he had a ministry background too.
Okay, sure.
And man, I had a lot of success in the ministry world, and had a lot of followers and a lot of all this stuff. Yeah. And I was kind of approaching secular coaching as what it was in the ministry world, and I found out really fast it is not the same. And I couldn't understand it, because I almost was, like, I want to say, quote unquote, like a rock star in the ministry world, right? And built up all this time and resources, and like I just spent all my probably 10 or 11 years in that.
Sure.
And then I switch over to this and think, I'm just going to trade teams and be over there, and everything's going to be the same, and it wasn't.
No, yeah, right.
And Clay really helped me take away a lot of that religious fluff that just kind of sticks to you over the years that I didn't even know I had it.
Oh yeah, no, Christianese is tough to get rid of.
Yeah, and he really helped me to kind of block all that stuff out and get to the bare bone basis of, do you want a business? Is this a business?
Yeah.
If this is a business, then we need to do this, this, and this. You need to be systematic. You need to be systems oriented, and like, he really helped reframe me in that sense. And then after our time was over together, I knew you kind of put me on my way, and I've been still evolving and growing from there. So I say all that to say how I started was, kind of just set up shop, if you will, and go, I'm a coach, and see what I can help people with. Sure. And then from there, I really started figuring out those niche markets, or the niche products, as I kind of call them niche products more than I do markets now. Because I know I'm a guy, a coach who can help in a lot of areas.
Right.
But setting up shop and going, hey, I'm a coach, let me know what you need, is never going to make you money. unless you are Tony Robbins or something like that, and you have that already to your name. So I did figure out that, you know, I need to really model these products and market these products as opposed to just setting up shop. So now it's more of a there's a few things that I'm doing now. So one of the first things that I figured out that I was helping people in was helping people figure out their purpose and calling. And so, because that's a huge thing that a lot of, and to be totally honest with you, the whole Christianese thing has really messed that up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people, oh, is this really God? Is this, you know, and all these weird questions that you're just like, okay, let's cut through all this crap.
Yeah.
And so,
thanks, Rick Warren.
Yeah, exactly. I hope he sees this one day. No,
yeah, oh yeah, I'm sure he will. I'm sure I'm right there on his radar.
He'll be so pissed when he said that too.
I love it.
Yeah. So, but no, helping people find their purpose and calling, and to be able to get away from all of the misnomers of what that actually means.
Sure.
Because when people think purpose and calling, they think, and this is just an example, people think that one thing that I should sit here to earth to do, and I have to do that thing, and I'm not going to budge from that thing, and that's my thing. And they're just, it's like almost psycho addicted to this one thing, and they can never get away from it.
Right.
So I help them understand a more being present model of purpose and calling.
I love that, man. That's a fantastic model.
Yeah, and that's helped tons of people, man, because as you know, we pick something to do, and as we start to do it, we go, oh, this is nice. Okay, this is not as fun as it was. Oh, but look at this thing. Oh my God. And then we jump on that and we go, this is amazing. But we would have never found that thing had we not gone through the process of doing that initial calling that we had.
Correct. So yeah, and so basically what you're doing is allowing them to be present so that they understand that your passions are progressive. Your purpose is progressive. It's never going to be, oh, I know what I'll be doing the day I die. That's going to bring me purpose.
Exactly right. Yeah, we have a real fixation in our culture for the future.
I totally agree with that. You know, it's and it's remarkable whenever you see the history of those in our species who have done anything great. It almost seems that they were doing a lot of different passions at the same time. They were pursuing a lot of things, and those things would correlate together and build on one another, and they would come out with something that's brand new. That would access their creativity is by combining their passions rather than focusing on just one thing.
That's beautiful. I love that.
I only discovered that when I was studying how Einstein came up with the theory of relativity and the way that he was utilizing thought processes and was thinking about things outside of the box. And I was just like, wow, that's just a unique way of pursuing passions.
Right. I feel bad sometimes, James. Not I say bad tongue in cheek, but I feel bad sometimes because I'll be in a conversation and, you know, somebody will say something like the other day this happened to me. I was saying, oh yeah, I actually almost went to the Junior Olympics in swimming. And but that was like one thing that I told this person, and I've done like a ton of other stuff too. I've also played at a really high level of football and basketball, and you know, I've spoken before, and I was a rapper and all these things. And it's like, there's something you haven't done. It's like I just follow my passion, like what I think is fun and what I want to do, and I just do it and try to master it, and then go to the next thing. And it's exactly what you just said, man. It's where I have this really unique perspective, robust perspective. I'll say that, a really robust perspective on a lot of things. Yeah, I've experienced a lot of things. So
yeah, absolutely. I have the same type of history, man. I'm with the background in ministry. I went to New Zealand and lived for a while because they wanted me to come over and preach. And so I did healing evangelism while I was there. And
wow, I didn't know that about you, man. How did I not know that?
I don't know, man. Well, I don't talk a lot about it anymore because it seems almost like I would be trying to speak to an audience that it almost feels like it'd be dishonest.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
And so I don't mention it very often. But I graduated from Rhema. My father is a pastor of a church in Texas. I was an associate pastor of a church in Texas, ran a halfway house while I was doing that. That was in my early 20s, and then went and did ministry in New Zealand and a bit in Australia, and then came back and was a youth pastor in Kuwait. And then my wife and I both did that together. And then slowly over the years, it's just been progressively studying, researching, and continuing to try to, pursue truth. My thing has always been I want to get as close to truth as I possibly can.
Beautiful. Yeah, I like that, man.
So I don't want to speak to the wrong audience. The only time I ever even mention it is my specific certification isn't necessarily qualified to do any type of counseling or therapy.
Yeah.
But my background in church ministry actually had a program where I did take family counseling and marital counseling and all sorts of things of that nature. So anytime that I'm asked to present to a group of mental health care therapists or counselors or anything of that nature, it's typically brought up in my bio.
Right. Yeah.
And that's about the only time.
That makes a lot of sense. I struggled. That was one of the things as well that I struggled with starting out in coaching was trying to figure out the language of how I was going to say I used to be in ministry forever.
Yeah.
And honestly, man, that's where I am now. Is like I forget about it sometimes. I don't.
Dude, isn't that so strange? Until you almost have to get back into that type of conversation with somebody, and then it starts kind of flooding back. But yeah, I've distanced myself so much.
Yeah, there is an aspect, and this is not a product I have right now.
Yeah.
But I have been asked. Actually, I was just asked by another woman this morning. I have been asked to produce some product or a workshop that helps people struggling with certain aspects of Christianity to come out of it, to start to deprogram.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of questions in there, and this is my theory, that if someone is in the church world and is very honest about their studies, about the evolution of their studies, I don't want to be small-minded when I say this, but I don't see how you couldn't get to a place where you and I are, if you're being honest. Now, if you're being dogmatic and stuck in that whole thing, and you're appealing not necessarily to truth or to universal spirituality or whatever the case is, if you're not really appealing to that, and you're appealing to this denomination, then that's what you're serving, and you're never going to get out of it. But if you're really truthful and you're really like, no, I just want to know the truth. I want to know how this works. And when you do that, man, I've just seen that it's impossible to not end up, free from it.
Yeah,
I think you froze up here, man.
Oh, did I? Sorry.
Did I freeze on you?
No, I'm still got a direct feed from you. Oh, now it's starting to freeze. And yeah, we're starting.
All right, you're back now.
Okay.
We're back.
So we probably are suffering from the same slow buffering there. So
yeah. All right, am I back now? You're back.
Yes. Yeah, we got a little bit of fuzziness on your end, but I'm picking up most of the audio for sure. So, and my wife happened to step in and ask me. My wife asked me if you still lived here, and I told her no. So.
Oh yeah, no, I'm in Atlanta now. I'm in Atlanta, so I've actually thought about moving out west a little bit.
Okay. Where to?
I don't want to move to Cali because it's too expensive.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
But I've thought about like Arizona and Oregon, possibly even Seattle. Atlanta's a very liberal place. It's not as progressive as I would like.
Sure.
So there's a lot of I find that there's a lot of foundation I have to give for people to understand me before we can ever really go beyond an acquaintance type situation.
Right. Yeah.
I almost like I have to build this framework first.
Yeah.
Be like, okay, here's where I'm from. This is where I went. Then I did this.
Yeah.
Then I just this, then I had this existential crisis, and then I'm here. Does that make sense? And they're like, I have no idea what you just said.
And what's so,
Let's just get here. It's all good. I don't know.
I've had that same exact experience. It's so hilarious. I mean, my wife just asked from the other room if you're my twin. Because I literally, every time somebody tells me what's the secret, or asks me what's the secret behind, building a business like yours, what do you do? What do you implement? And I go, how long do you have?
Right.
It's never one thing. It's always going to build upon one another. And however I did it is going to be entirely different than how you need to do it. So,
right.
And I think that's where you teaching the being present in your pursuits is very similar concept to myself, is that I try to tell people, look, if you're going to really want to get to the root of how this works, you have to learn to pursue your passions, to be authentic with yourself, to pursue truth, to pursue whatever it is that's really pulling at your heartstrings. You have to be willing to abandon all of your presuppositions, abandon your indoctrination, and to go for it 100%. Go after whatever it is that's pulling on you.
Yes, absolutely, man. That it's very interesting. Even I think it was probably the second or third year I was really into Christianity. There was this psalm, it's Psalms 37:5, I believe, and it says that God will give you the desires of your heart.
Yeah, if you seek Him.
Right. Yeah. Of course, there has to be some type of condition.
Yeah, there's conditional always.
So, but I really dove into that scripture. I went into the Hebrew of it and everything, and like just really extracted everything I could, and actually found that probably one of the most foundational things, what I still believe today, and that is that everything that we should be doing in our life is already written right here. Like our heart knows what it wants. Yeah. And it's more of again, it takes away that whole concept of duality and separation. Yeah. But it's the same idea that not only has God placed it on your heart, but your heart actually is God, or your heart is the being that is connected to God, or however you want to say that you're comfortable with.
There's an internal driver.
Exactly. And if I can turn people's ear to listen to that, instead of their parents, or instead of bosses, teachers, whatever, that's what I found has been the biggest thing to help people really get set free, in a sense of being able to live their life without condemnation and live free to do what they want to do and be happy. Yeah. So
yeah, I agree with that, dude. That's powerful that you've come to that same type of conclusion. I think it's really cool. I think it's cool to have somebody that I feel like is a real colleague that is, in the same path, but not doing it the same way whatsoever.
Right. Yeah, man. Yeah. It's very interesting. That's really what my whole philosophy is in this whole thing anyway, with spirituality. Because as you know, in the Christian world, every other religion's looked down on, and not just in the Christian world, but most other religions too. Aside from Buddhism, some sects of Hinduism and stuff. But it's interesting to me that what I call the divine, and I don't really say God anymore, because who knows what that even is.
Nobody ever knows.
Right. So I say this thing, I just say the divine now. That's kind of my language. It's interesting that the divine meets whatever individual in whatever place they are. I mean, for God's sakes, I was in a cult. Like, I was in a straight up cult. Yeah. And I began this evolution process of learning truth. And but I was in a cult. Like it blows my mind to this day. I'm like, how was I there, but then God still, or the divine still speaking to me and getting me to this place, so then I can go to this place. It's just amazing. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you're some Muslim terrorist or something like that. Like if you are open to hear truth and you're open to that aspect of life, you will incrementally get to a place of freedom. Absolutely. And that's just what's amazing to me about what's inside of this flesh android, if you will.
Absolutely. And the more that you are honest with yourself, I remember my moment for me was my wife and I were headed to get donuts one morning. And I pulled up to what I assumed was where we were going to get donuts. And she kind of looked at me and said, "You didn't want to go down to Krispy Kreme?" And I had this moment where I just kind of was like, "Oh, well, I guess I did something wrong," you know? And so I kind of overreacted and was like, "Well, why don't you just, I don't care where we go." You know, I had this whole thing. And I realized that I was a real asshole in that moment, like big time. And then I had to just stop and say, "Hey, that was entirely wrong of me. That was, I totally took out on you my insecurity that I was being told I did something wrong. And I turned that, flipped it on you and anger toward you." And that for me was a huge moment of this, like, I describe it as like there was this ego death that occurred. And I connected with that on a way that was like, because I could tell it kind of melted her in that moment. And she was like, thank you for saying that. And that, you know, that honesty built more of a connection between me and my wife. And it was something that for my entire life, I'd never even seen it, you know? And in that moment, it's like I recognized it full force and I couldn't ignore it. I had to address my insecurity. I had to kill it.
That's amazing, man. That's very cool. That's a great story. And it really highlights to me and confirms to me the power of transparency. Of not being afraid to open your heart. And you know, that whole, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but the whole breakdown of intimacy, into me you see.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's really what I feel like transparency does for people. Like for us, it feels kind of scary, and you know, you're kind of out on a balancing beam, like, all right, let's see if this works. I'm this, and I did this, and I know that's totally messed up. But then from that place, there's just so much healing because there's acceptance and honesty there.
Absolutely.
Acceptance is a word I use a lot, actually, especially for people. So another product I have is healing from emotional abuse or physical abuse, because both have very similar effects. But that's a word that I use a lot to try to get people to a place of acceptance of what's happened, acceptance of what they think about it, and acceptance of where they can go from here.
Gotcha.
And when that happens, I think that makes people get into the present moment. Not acceptance. If there's this, well, I wish it was this way. Well, I wish that didn't happen to me. I wish my story was this. But when you mow all that down and you get to a place of acceptance, then you can really build upon, okay, this is what it is, and this is what you have, this is the cards you have, and now we can go somewhere with this.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a powerful reframe, is rather than focusing on every disadvantage you've ever had, is to start to focus on the resources that you have available to you to get to the best possible place.
Exactly. And so how I frame that for as far as those resources available for you is everything that's in here. And that's where I go into the reprogramming, using affirmations, using visioning exercises and stuff like that.
Yeah. And do you focus on in the affirmations? Have you read the book Affirmations?
I haven't. No, who's that by?
I'm not even sure. It was a big deal in my networking group about 6 months ago. Everyone was all the rage about it. And the model is affirmations are kind of like envisioning and focusing on the authentic self, the things that you're affirming, the good things about oneself, affirming the good things about what you want and what you desire and things of that nature. And then affirmations is more from a mindset of asking yourself in a past tense, what did I do to arrive at this place? And focusing on thinking about it, visualizing it in past tense, and saying it like, how was my day differently in order to achieve the outcome I wanted, and things of that nature. And I guess the author is trying to say that, you know, if you are thinking about it, it's almost like that phrase, a trip of 1,000,000 miles begins with a single step. And it's like bullshit. A trip of 1,000,000 miles means that you have to believe you can actually make it.
Yeah.
Like you have to know, you have to see the end. And so the author's idea is that a lot of times people are trying to visualize the outcome at the end, but they're kind of telling themselves the whole time, you're full of shit. You can't do that. Right. And so the author's idea was, if you ask it in the past tense, you bypass that, because it's not saying, you're not trying to visualize something that you don't believe. You're actually trying to look for the pattern that you followed in order to get where you wanted to be.
So it's reverse engineering in its mind.
Reverse engineering, right. So yeah, that's the concept. That's the model anyway. And I thought it was interesting. It might be something you might look into, but it sounds kind of right up your alley.
And you read the book, or did you?
I just extracted the model from what everyone else was kind of talking about. I never actually did read it.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I'll pick that up and see if.
And if I'm completely and entirely wrong about the model that everyone else was trying to present, let me know.
If it's a horrible book, I'm gonna let you know.
Yeah, I really want you to, because I would do similarly.
No.
I did get, whenever I was in Bible school, I was gifted Purpose-Driven Life, and I did, after I read it, I did have to tell the person that I thought it was absolute trash.
Yeah. I did some similar things with seminary books. Mm. So especially when I made my transition from that cult to it was a very charismatic flavor of an AG church.
Sure.
So it wasn't traditionally AG at all. It did have some older AG members who definitely didn't like me because I was so unorthodox. Sure. I've always been really unorthodox with how I do things, even when I was there.
Yep, I went through that too.
yeah, it's a fun way to be.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we might as well be contentious, right?
Exactly. I don't try to be. I promise.
Dude, I'm telling you, I had a minister who was my childhood pastor that took me aside and was like, you need to kind of start teaching about sin a little bit more. And I was kind of like, I get that. That is some people's message. It's just not mine.
Right. Exactly, man. Yeah.
So, but I was independent Assemblies of God.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
That's where I was ordained. Now I'm ordained Cherokee Nation because they don't care what you think.
Yeah. Oh, I'm doing a wedding tomorrow. I'm actually ordained with the great old Universal Life Church of
nice. Yeah. Love the Universalists.
So I had to people will still ask me to do weddings for them, so I had to do something.
I love it, man. Yeah, I mean that's exactly why I got mine, was to be inefficient still, and so that's
exactly. Part of it. Yeah,
awesome.
But I remember taking some of those seminary books. You probably read the same ones, and I would read them, and I'd just be like highlighting stuff like, "This is shit. This is horrible." Yeah. What? This is the thing.
Yeah. I had the same exact problem. I mean, and then conflicting theologies and doctrines, that was something that was very tough for me. I remember, really getting close to a few Calvinists, and just the concept of predestination and different things of that nature, and just how they conflicted so much with the existing ideas around what I thought were mandatory Christian theologies. And just seeing how people could justify these things and seem to always square a circle somehow. And it was just, I started kind of just seeing behind the curtain too quickly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It was, you probably ran into this too, but it was amazing to me how many questions I could ask to supposed elders or leaders that their eyes widened, and I felt like the 12-year-old Jesus whenever they did. And they're like,
oh my gosh.
You need to be real careful when you ask that question. No, I want to know the answer.
Yeah, no. Don't try to pursue truth too much.
It just baffled me, and and it got to a point where in that cult especially, the pastor would make sure to almost hamster wheel me in a sense of like, okay, don't go over there. You can't talk to them. Or no, don't talk to them either. No, you don't want to.
Yep.
Make sure that I wouldn't stir up the pot too much. And sure. It was so genuine. I wasn't doing it to poison anyone or to hurt anyone. And actually, when I left, I even honored what he wanted me to do. I didn't say a damn thing to anybody because it's their journey. And I'm like, well, all right, cool. I mean, y'all are my friends and family, but I guess if you want me to be exiled like that,
then that's okay. It is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, because my thing wasn't to usurp his authority and try to like take people.
No, I want answers.
That was it.
That's it. That's cool, man. I think it's cool that you and I pursued similar pathways, and we both arrived at similar modalities in order to help people, connect with the best version of themselves. It's super cool.
Yes, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Very
Yeah,
cool. It's been an hour, man. I don't want to keep you too long.
Yeah, sure. No, we'll get off and definitely stay connected, brother. Definitely stay connected, and
This was hugely valuable for me just to get to have this conversation. I don't get to have these conversations with very many people.
I agree. I was going to say earlier in our conversation that that's something I'm really trying to work on right now, is to build a circle of friends.
Yeah.
That can get what I'm saying.
Sure.
Because with everything I just came out of, that was one of the first things that goes whenever you're with a narcissist. That's kind of a situation.
Sure.
They kind of bottleneck you or corner you, and not having a lot of friends and not being able to really express yourself in a deep way. So that's something that's very valuable for me as well, man.
Well, you can definitely count on me. And also, while I'm kind of wrapping this up, and in that same vein, I like to make sure that if there's any possible way that I can add value to someone else, that I look for it. So is there anything that I could do to help promote your business, or to highlight something that you would like to promote, or anything to my audience?
Right now, since I'm in the stage of building this workshop model, probably not immediately.
Okay.
But in the near future, like very near future, I am going to be doing these workshop models. I'll go ahead and tell you that the first thing that I'm working on is that purpose and calling model, more for the age of. I'm going to do a couple of different workshops, but one is for students coming out of high school right now, and then the other is students graduating high school, or at the the last 2 years of college, the last 2 years of college. And then those in the workforce who are like, I'm miserable as hell, and I don't know what I'm doing, and those types of things. So it's there's 3 different people there, and I would approach those 3 different in different ways.
Yeah, sure.
So those are the workshops that I'm going to be opening up first, probably within the next couple of weeks here. So
awesome. Well, please do me a favor and let me know whenever you're ready, and I would be happy to make sure that I promote it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And same goes for you. And will you have, let's see, will you have the file of this recording?
Yes, I will. And I'll upload it to a Google Drive and share the link with you.
Perfect. So I'll have my intern chop a lot of the good parts of our talk here, and obviously put it up, and I'll give you big shouts out and all that stuff whenever I do that.
Oh man, same here. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on it. I do have a lot of sales videos to get completed for a client out of OKC, so it may take me a couple of days, but I really appreciate your time, man. Thank you for your investment.
Yes, absolutely. Same for you, buddy. Same for you.